Ben Anderson visited Sudan, where the humanitarian crisis remains dire, but rebel forces believe that they have the edge. This is his debrief.
Four or 5 years ago, it seemed like the whole world cared about Darfur. It felt like it was mentioned daily. I remember the celebrities going out there, I remember billions of dollars being raised, and it felt like there was so much attention that something would be done. And then suddenly the story just disappeared. And yet the situation on the ground didn't change much at all. And recently, it's been getting worse. 500,000 new refugees in the last 12 months alone. And yet I don't remember the last time I saw Sudan mentioned in a newspaper or on a news TV channel. It's embarrassing to think that the media can only sort of handle one foreign story at a time, and that the world can seem to care so much about one issue and then forget about it 5 minutes later. Just total inaction on the part of the international community. Almost every year you can hear someone claiming he's about to get overthrown, and he's still about 20 years after taking power. I think almost perversely, one of the big actions of the international community was to indict him for war crimes and genocide, which means he's really got his back up against the wall now. So if he steps down peacefully somehow, he'll find himself in court and probably in prison for the rest of his life, which has probably decreased the chances of him even considering stepping down. So I think at this point, it's he's going to be forcibly removed, or he's going to cling on for as long as he possibly can. Between 2/3 and 3/4 of the oil revenue now goes to South Sudan, which has meant that in Khartoum they've cut off fuel subsidies and raised the prices of public transport, fuel, all sorts of other things. So there are now big protests in Khartoum, and if the rebels can link up with those protesters, which they claim they're doing now, then I think that's probably the most serious threat to Bashir's regime for a very, very long time. So secession in the south has had a massive, massive impact. I don't think we'll see the results of that impact for a while, but clearly the regime is rattled. I think the rebels are united in the fight against government forces, but I mean, one small example which probably says a lot. There was a battle a few months before we were there, which the rebels won. We were with the GEM rebels and the SPLA rebels, and they both claimed they played the instrumental role in defeating the government forces, and that the other rebels did almost nothing, just sat on the sideline and watched. So it's clearly an uneasy alliance, but they realise militarily the only way they can defeat the government is if they stop fighting each other and focus on Khartoum. The problem, of course, is if they take Khartoum, they then have to share power somehow, and they've got very different agendas, very different ideas for what should happen, or had very different ideas for what should happen to Sudan in the long term. So even if they overthrow Bashir, which will surely be, a massive, joyous moment for millions of people, not just in Sudan, but around that entire region, there are still some very big question marks as to what happens next. I think if the rebels do take Khartoum, and that's still a very big if, I think there will be massive jubilation in Sudan and in neighboring countries. But very much like the Mujahideen beating the Russians in Afghanistan, what happens next could turn out to be as bad all over again. There's a very uneasy alliance. There's lots of people who will want revenge against the people who were raping, looting and bombing them for the last 10 years. I think it's very damning of the rest of the world that the only way this war criminal is going to be removed is going to be what looks like all-out civil war with possible hideous consequences, possible massive bloodshed again for the people of Sudan. I think it's damning that it's come to that, to get this guy out of power and facing justice. It's very worrying about what it could mean for the people of Sudan, and very damning about how little we're actually willing to do following how much we seem to care just 4 or 5 years ago.